we have evolved quite a lot since then. As you know, last year we finished an acceleration project with Johnson & Johnson. And what we've been trying to do this year is to understand how research and knowledge can be translated into things that can change the way people connect, that the talent is connected, the way people innovate. And I am absolutely happy to host today at our Tata Innovation webinar series, Katja Panke, the CEO from Eindhoven Engine, and Walter Beets, the Chief Learning Officer. This is a very special moment because Katja and Walter and Martin Steinbuch and their team were a kind of dream client, if you wish. When you're starting a new project, when you're starting something very new, you really are dreaming about getting one day people who will entrust you and with the same curiosity and open-mindedness explore how we can develop something together. And I believe that network IQ and network intelligence, we are very much indebted to Eindhoven Engine and other early adopters and organizations, teams, leaders who gave us the credit. I see many of you here, and I'm thrilled. So why don't we simply make the official start? I will share my screen. And let me also make the following introduction. I already introduced Katja Panke and Walter Beets, but I also want to introduce my dear colleague Ewelina Bielawska, who has been with me for the last over 2 years, 3 years. And in case I cannot connect, if there is any technical difficulty, she will take over moderating this session. But I want to most cordially welcome Professor Martin Schoormans, who has been my very dear colleague and mentor back when we met at the founding board of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Professor Schoormans was the founding chairman of the EIT. I think this is really a historic role. And later, when I decided to leave academia, I was truly grateful that he wanted to mentor me and coach me. And him being a scientist and as an entrepreneur at the same time, he knew how difficult it was for me to change my way of thinking from research to actually trying to make something truly practical and useful. So today we will really dive deeper into the network IQ model and especially the skill engagement, of course, virtual engagement. And we will go into the how to disrupt the ecosystem on the case example of Eindhoven Engine, which we will learn more about in a second. But if you allow me, I would like to have the agendas, the part split into 3 things, into 3 aspects. First, I would like to talk briefly about transformation, disruption, ecosystem trends, framing this into our research on network IQ and solutions. Then we would talk about the network IQ skills, remote teamwork, and virtual organizations. And at the end, we would go into practical engagement strategies. And after my very short few slide introduction, I will stop sharing my screen and we will go into the discussion mode with Katja and with Walter. So people look at the world in different ways. I look at the world as a number of connected dots. And I love when people say, do you know how to connect the dots? Or they say, I will connect the dots. Because this means that there's a click moment, an aha moment, when they can bridge the world of ideas, of creativity, with the world of impact. And here you can see the social network analysis, which basically is how we can look at our organizations, big or small. We can look at our family this way, or we can look at the city ecosystem this way, or at the global innovation system the same. What we've been trying to do at Tata Innovation is to develop a process that you can easily learn how to connect the dots together with people who care about the same mission, the same vision, and want to achieve the same, some kind of shared success. All what we do is really to understand which are the right communities that will give you access to the type of resources, who are the high status members in these communities that you should build trusted relations with, how to influence them, so how to connect with other influencers and understand how you could do something together. And ultimately, it's about power. This is why we're framing the Network IQ Index and all what we do as a kind of leadership, transformation, change management, something that really requires power to move the clock. So you know that the expertise started many years ago. It was codified in my old book now on innovation and entrepreneurship. But funnily enough, I wrote the book when Europe was hit by the crisis of 2008. I stopped in 2014, but now we are again in another crisis. And actually what I wrote in the book years ago becomes absolutely even more relevant today, because the system, the dynamics, the components of what is network society, what are the network-based business model, the power of the platform economy have not changed. Just COVID made us understand what is the power of networks, and that there is no single wall that we can make across of us. Our expertise is being still developed, used, or applied in thinking about the post-COVID recovery of the European Commission. And this is a policy brief that I had an honor to co-author earlier this year. Now, basically, when you think about intelligence, it's really something happening in the brain. And you can look at the brain scans in different ways. But our way of looking at how people think about connecting the dots, so transforming this movement of societies, movement of teams, movement of organizations, is about basically a bucket of skills. Based on my research, we identified that there are some skills that are really relevant. They are network strategy, networking, engagement, empowerment, digital communication, collaboration for diversity, and influence. And we've been actually doing a number of projects, exploratory projects this year, to understand how this model holds in different communities. What you see here are actually two different research projects. One was actually understanding what people use networking for. And this is the bottom graph. And one of the most surprising things was that actually there is a big gap between people who use networking to disrupt and we were trying to understand what is this profile of a disruptor. It's also someone who's using networking to monitor market trends. And we saw that there is a biggest gap between some populations. I do not want to go into details, but I just want to show with this graphs that number one is there is a different profile of people using the connecting talents, the connecting the dots. And then second, that there's a big discrepancy between different skill sets people have. And one of the most powerful is when you look at the top graph, at the last 7 skill influence, you will see that actually the spread is the largest. So some people have the power to influence the networks, others do not. But before I move deeper into the numbers, I think Katja was great telling me, Daria, the best way to tell what you're doing is by telling a story, not by using the numbers. So let me shortly, before I stop sharing my screen, say we've been working with Eindhoven Engine since May. We ended a few weeks ago, and we started with the understanding what are the individual skill levels, so the network IQ assessment. Then we worked through a series of workshops with the entire team. And then we split into self-paced online courses for LinkedIn. We believe LinkedIn is a great platform to explore, to learn by doing, to build deeper friendships with people you already know and trust, and then expand your network to get access to bigger resources. And then we coached one of the Katja's team. And finally, we tried to gather the data to understand what have been done together. But let me just stop sharing my screen at this point and say, why don't we give the voice to Katja and then to Walter? Maybe you want to tell more about Eindhoven Engine. What is the purpose of Eindhoven Engine? What is its history? And what is your role within the company?
Yes, thank you, Daria. I think I will start and Walter will add on later. So nice that you all joined today, and thanks, Daria, for inviting us as guests to tell our story and to discuss with you and also to inspire you. This cooperation was really very valuable for us, or is very valuable for us. I'm the managing director of Eindhoven Engine. Originally, I'm from Germany, and I'm now 20 years in Holland and worked always in innovation, development, and research. And what we have seen in the south, in the Netherlands, it's a very valuable ecosystem where companies and government and universities work very closely together. We call it also a triple helix formula. But things were going too slow. When we want to stay competitive and find out new breakthrough innovations, we need to organize ourselves in a different way. And Eindhoven Engine is, in fact, a way of doing things differently in this cooperation with industry and the knowledge institutes. We have set up Eindhoven Engine actually last year, so we are now 1 year old. And our concept is, or our belief, that we need to accelerate innovation. And we do this by not only organizing multidisciplinary work of companies and knowledge institutes on co-location, but also mixing the domains so that the projects meet each other. And in fact, we are organizing a little chaos to organize these cross-sections where new innovations come from. And of course, the sustainable development goals and social challenges are very important and leading in the projects we are dealing with. But it must be impactful projects where the innovation needs to be accelerated. And co-location is very important for us, especially in these times where COVID impacts our life and the way of working. And there we had a lot of added value by working with a network strategy, and Daria helped us, and Evelina very good in that. And Walter, I think you can add in the way of working why we are so special and that we are convinced that we need to organize ourselves in a different way. And the transformation also not only of the project, but also the people is very important.
Yes, particularly. To start off, I did not have the highest IQ score, so that's not the reason they've asked me to be here. So don't be disappointed if your score is not as you would like it to be. I am indeed a little bit a strange animal in the beehive. I'm not an engineer. I did not study at the TU Eindhoven. So my background is in complexity and systems thinking, and I'm coming out of business and the business school tradition. I think what the nice thing about the Eindhoven Engine is that arguably, but the Eindhoven region has some of the smartest people in the world, and they are ranked for that. And whatever world rankings, you see them as the innovation space to be. However, some of that innovation does take too much time, does follow too much the way we've been doing that for ages. It has to go faster. And the reality of the world has changed. And Daria said that, Katja confirmed that, in a network economy, in a network world. And I think what we want to do is go that network road in the way how we talk and work around innovation. So in networks, in open innovation, in co-creation, where we see that the personal transformation of the people involved in innovation is probably equally important, if not more important, than the way how you do the innovation, right? And there, that network concept, even if we say we need to go into co-location, we need to meet, we need to organize the unorganized, and that those kind of accidental meetings. Of course, Corona pushes us into an understanding that that network does continue to live beyond the physical, if not like today, is not physical at all anymore, and is only virtual. Now, in such a circumstance, of course, that network intelligence approach is crucially important.
Thank you very much. And if you know that I'm fascinated by Brainport and by Eindhoven University of Technology, and the way the Eindhoven Engine has been trying, even if you're at the very head cutting edge of innovation ecosystem, if you're one of the best, how do you disrupt yourself? How do you disrupt the people, how you work together? So it's been fascinating for me to see how you were trying to reinvent yourself right when the pandemic started. Could you comment, maybe first Katja, then Walter, what have you observed in your ecosystem? How would you, describe those early trends that industry, university, startups, investors, that all this orchestrated chaos, to build on what Walter said, has been evolving over the last months? What do you see happen in your ecosystem? How this organizations and people change, and then how this affects the whole ecosystem?
What we have seen, that the government was very fast in supporting with funds and try to help all the companies to, in the beginning, to survive, to keep their people on board. The companies were struggling at the beginning of the pandemic with sometimes no local production, and they were waiting in the supply chain for delivery from non-European countries, and that was, it was a kind of a transition. How should we build our supply chains in the future? So that was absolutely a big impact, and will have an effect on the future in the industry world. Eindhoven Engine's shareholders are knowledge institutes, the university, but also the applied scientific research institutes, TNO and Fontis, for applied science. And you saw that immediately, but I think not later than week one, they were fully working remote. So education was given remote, but also research. The people were working from home. And we are also a kind of role models for that. So we need this meeting of the people to get new inspirations and to get new innovation seeds, but we needed to organize this virtually. So remote working, I think it's something we have all in common, and looking for supply chains of the future, local production, for example, but also how to deal with the talents you have on the university. We have a lot of expert people here in Holland, and how to keep them here and give a safe surrounding that they continue with their work in this setting.
Thank you, Katja. Walter, do you want to?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. I would like to add a few things. I mean, and we always talk about supply chains, and of course there is something of reality behind that. But I think what we are rapidly moving towards is supply networks, you see, or communities or whatever. And I think we're still struggling with that concept. It's all new, but I think the company that will be successful in the coming 1, 2, 3 years is the ones that really understand that idea of building communities, and if you want to make it simpler, call it a supply network instead of a supply chain. What I've seen, of course, is that traditionally in the Eindhoven region, but in many innovation campuses, I mean, we still think reasonably silo-based, reasonably within our specializations. And what we really try to do is we try to break that open and say, look, if we would talk to other people, multidisciplinarity, call it the way you want to, but bring in other ideas, we could really accelerate and suddenly come up with ideas that no individual player would come up with, since it's not in their line of thought, And we also see, secondly, that of course in that silo tradition, if you allow me to call it like that, it's very much analysis based. It's all studying and understanding, whereas what you see more and more around agility is that whole idea of experimentation, try it, pilot it, learn fast, go back, next design, etc., etc. And that is what we see again in that new network reality.
Thank you very much. I remember Martin Skormans was telling us when we were at the, 12 years ago, setting up the networked model of the EIT and the KICS, that that it's not about the value chains anymore, it's about value webs. And now, Walter, you called it value networks. I actually am part of the expert group working and advising European Commission on the giving input on the new industrial strategy. And I do believe that Industry 5.0 will be one of the key strategic goals for Europe to regain the position. in many different aspects. And I truly believe that the kind of new type of thinking, of bringing agents together, as Eindhoven Engine is doing, is truly, forward thinking. It's truly new. Now, Katja, could you really explain to our guests here? We have quite many people from all around the world. What is the interaction from the user perspective of Eindhoven Engine? So you're organizing challenges and you're investing in deep tech projects that have, on the one hand, commercial potential. On the other hand, they have social impact. You do care to combine the two, right? But so let's say that I am a technologist or a scientist, and how, from my perspective, what value could I expect, or how would you engage me, into your ecosystem, if I may call it this way, and then how would I become a member of your community?
We started with, or we working with a project, have in mind a certain size of 20 people, a few million euros, so that you really can make impact in a certain time of 2-3 years. We have also some subsidies from the government for acceleration, so companies can apply with their innovative project, and they can we have a committee who is looking for the projects and the innovativeness of it and the commercial skills in it. And the projects will be carried out for a big portion on co-location, and that now, of course, is mainly virtually. And we have not only one project with different team members where we talk about acceleration, but also bringing all this collective intelligence together of all these teams within Eindhoven Engine to become part of a community and to use this collective intelligence to accelerate. And I think to be part of a community, you not only should have a project in Eindhoven Engine, but you can also link to project members of our community to talk about different topics and share ideas.
And what is so special? Why would I really want to be part of your community, to apply for your funding, and then to socialize with your crowd?
Yeah, I think the biggest value the most people see is the out-of-the-box thinking and different organization that experienced researchers from the companies meet young people from the universities and knowledge institute, to bringing together young and experienced people. The industry and academic world on one location is really special, that people let go their people out of these silos to come to work on co-location with us. And to have access to these talents of the future.
Super, thank you. Walter, if I may turn to you, you mentioned a few times the network strategy. And this is actually what we've been working with your team, using, developing, testing, validating our methodology, our process. Could you explain why was this important for Eindhoven Engine to have the network strategy?
Well, I think I briefly already referred to it. You have a reasonably top-down approach to innovation in the region, which has been extremely successful. But if you want to move to a more network reality, to a more complex world, to a more uncontrolled world where supply chains, still to use once those chains, are breaking in pieces, then you have to be supported in how you understand your own network, how you can access your own network, and how you can have that network animated. And I don't say we are there. I don't think we are really the best possible example of what you would like to see. But the point is we try very hard, and we have a lot of good raw material, as Katja said. Now, the point is, using that raw material, we need to move faster into that network thinking, network action, by the way, not just network thinking, but also network doing.
Absolutely.
Daria, can I add something here? Because I have to leave, if you allow me, yeah?
Please.
There's one point I've probably overheard, because I'm sure it's in your network. when I joined Philips Healthcare in 2002, which became later, the current Philips, we were looking at on-time delivery of very complex medical equipment. And we had, enormous warehouses completely filled with CT scanners, MRI scanners, and blah, blah, blah. We were wasting about $1 billion per year using these warehouses. So we said, no, it should be on-time delivery. The hospital tells us in July 1, I want my machine, and then you need to have it. And the first thing that we had to change, and I never forget that, is that we had to build, this is 2002, a network in which the customer is present. And I haven't heard the word customer so far. Any innovation that you do without a customer is actually only a painful exercise. And I think that is very important, even in COVID times. I mean, I talk a lot to the ASML guys who are based here out of Eindhoven, as you know. They also face this difficulty. It's so difficult to talk to Intel and all the other users of their equipment right now and make sure what they need to have and when. Is that part of your network thinking? Because I think it's really absolutely important.
I think it all should start with who is using what you are developing.
Yeah.
So thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
And that's also part for the when we have a look on the criteria for our consortia. What is their business model? How can they valorize knowledge? We will, in co-creation, innovate together. It's a very important point.
Inclusive to customer, right?
Absolutely, and that must be part of the network strategy. I worked first for the university, and I was very astonished about that a lot of research, and as well also at TNO, were allowed where they never asked themselves the question, who is using this? Who's waiting for this? Who cares? Yeah. Exactly. Thank you for your comment. Very good.
No, it's a very important point, and TNO is still struggling with it, as you know, I'm sure.
And that's why I'm so happy that TNO is shareholder now. And yeah.
Okay. Daria, I have to leave, but maybe next time invite me again. Success.
Absolutely.
All of
Absolutely.
you. Success.
A pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Katja, if I may take on what you said, is that the way we were working together, building on Martin's comment, is that actually one aspect of our strategic exercise was to think how to engage the innovators, the technologists, and then the management team of the projects that you invested in. And in a way, they are your clients, right? Because basically you're serving them with your services, with your money. And then you were trying to develop with your team a strategy to have them on board, to have them engage. And we know that this is not easy to have tech talent, build the networks, especially if there's some kind of fuzzy long-term benefit. So let me ask you, what did you witness, or what did you see? Was there any concrete outcome, any concrete benefit of all, our working together on network strategy, and then trying to engage virtually the teams and have them become more connected, have them become more community than a network?
Yes, absolutely. So what I mentioned, we were starting only 1 year ago, and we had have a very strong bounding in this ecosystem, but virtually it was also very challenging for us. Very concrete was that we have only a few followers on LinkedIn. I think we doubled or in 3 times got it higher. So the reach became more, and with the reach also the impact. So I got a lot of questions. Oh, you are so visible on, oh, you are doing great things. And so reach and impact goes hand in hand, I think, and also the influence you have on in the virtual network. But also when we are working with calls, what I just mentioned, that we have a certain amount of money for new innovation projects. And when we start, we had about, I think, 6 applications. And the last call was a real big success. And I think also people find the way to us and were inspired. We had more than 4 times applications of really high qualitative projects. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great to hear this. Walter, what from your perspective as a chief learning officer, what did you see, concrete benefits or impact?
Let me first slightly correct what you suggested a minute ago. On the one hand, our clients are companies. On the other hand, and I think it's not neutral, our real client is the Brainport region. And you could see it even bigger. And again, that region is a network. And the question is, how can you get more out of all those different elements of the network? I mean, Philips is going to make it anyway, don't worry. But it's a pity to lose the huge potential that is in that network, one. Secondly, we do want to support impactful technological innovations, not just technology for the technology. And there again, you get into that idea of impact in society, hence the network of the company, the Brainport region, within its economic reality. I think that are important things. Now, if you talk about learning, of course, moving from situation 1, which I described a few times now, to a network structure, it is a lot about unlearning, forgetting what you've been doing for X years, I don't know, and moving into a way where you even use much more the vision of your client. We are fanatic about design thinking. We are fanatic about systems thinking. In design thinking, for those of you familiar, you start with your deep empathy from the client. Now, once you start working with people around those concepts, you see that the network idea becomes more and more alive. And I think that's what I have seen most in that is that transition. You see that people start to really understand what the network is. You can define a network. Of course, everybody can define that. But what does it really mean from doing tomorrow better than what you do today? And I think that from a learning perspective, at least I think is very intriguing and very interesting.
Have you seen, Walter, any, because it's always interesting to get an insight, maybe not now, but maybe later you can think about, because in my book, I have been always writing and thinking about innovation as a learning process.
Yes.
So, it's not about products, it's not about services, it's really about a collective process of learning together. And then the serendipity and the knowledge spillovers, how it enriches the whole value of people who you're connected with. But I'm still trying to understand, to what extent the effort of your colleagues and of you to build the skills. Katja and Martin Steinbuch from the beginning had top expert network IQ skills.
Yes.
Okay. But to what extent, did you, Katja, see in your team that building those skills, building those muscles helped them as individuals and helped you as a team? And maybe, Walter, you can also comment on this.
I think that everybody has his own competences and talents and interests and ambitions. So what we did this together with you, Daria and Evelina, with a group of 10 people, our core team. And you also see differences, and the one is more an orchestrator, the other better in strategic network thinking, and the other more the visionary thought leader. And I think always thinking from building high performance teams is to set people in that they are in their strength and in their power, and to use them from that, not asking somebody who is very happy at the university in a certain role to become an influencer of the future. That would not be natural and also not fit this person. So I think it's to learn about your interests, about your capabilities, to learn about the possibilities, and sometimes also to learn to handle the tools. It's important. And I'm convinced everybody has his own networks and his own brand, which can be used or combined with your brand of the company you are working and chosen for. So I think that for me is real power, to have also in this perspective the unconnected dots and the unexpected things, and to inspire and to see, oh, I can ask this guy from, and to identify different ways of engagement, different right persons, as you told us, and different ways of engage, and every within his or her possibilities.
Absolutely. We are gathering data and understanding what would be the best skill set for a given person in a given role in a given team. And I fully agree with you that not everyone needs to be an influencer, but it's good to know how to be a micro or nano influencer and understanding how the power in the network flows to be able to mobilize resources. Walter, do you want to comment on this?
I just would like to add a little bit what you suggested. Even if you're not everybody can be good in everything, but it's very good that you understand what skills are necessary and who has those skills. And in that way, use people for their better skills, surely, but also bring people together so that they can complement with their different skills, right? I think that's also an important outcome of that. And the second one is very simple. What you've done with us in a way is to extend our network, which was with respect reasonably Brainport oriented. And today we see that we get more easy and more rapidly in contact with a wider network. And God knows where it will end. I mean, we don't know, but at least we've started that open-ended exploration of all those people that might be useful in our network / community. Since that's where you really would like to get to.
So we have some questions from the audience, and we will take them in a moment. So before I move to the questions and organize myself to take them one by one, would you maybe comment on strategies for engagement? Because we were experimenting. Every single person in your team was learning how to be more proactive, how to build his or her own status in a network, your identity, brand, communication style. Could you comment on engagement strategies? Maybe some things didn't work, some things worked better than others at an individual level that you observed, but also as for you as a team.
Yeah, so what of course, you should have a strategy of your company about your what you're doing, your purpose, why you're on Earth. And I think this is an extension how to translate it in engagement and in a network strategy. So what was surprising also to deal with different cultures. So in Holland, we are often we have short lines, we call everybody, and we feel not ashamed, and there is a less hierarchy than, of course, in Poland or in Germany, where I was born. But what we have also seen was surprising, that we could identify the good people who were of major importance of our reaching our goals, but they were not engaged at all. So we need to find different ways to look for the influencers we in the first order didn't thought about, and to find other ways, not via virtual engagement with other stakeholders. And I think that's also very important, to be variable in this and flexible and adaptive. Yeah.
Okay. Super. So let me now, Katja, Walter, thank you very much. We have actually a lot of questions. Okay. So let me now take one by one. The first one is about sustainability. And the question is about whether we can, how would you, wait a second, how would you build networks for sustainability? I know that some of your projects relate to sustainability. Could you comment on any of your projects that you're helping them build more impact for sustain? I understand that it's about circular economy.
We started with, Walter, please go first.
No. What we really try to do in all the projects we accept that we run within Eindhoven Engine is that they should somewhere contribute to the famous sustainability development goals. And we even did the effort to position all the projects, particularly on which of those SDGs do they try to work with, you see. And I think this is a criteria up front. If you don't make it a criterion up front, it probably doesn't work. But for the Eindhoven Engine, impact, which we translate in SDGs, is quite crucial.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. I have many more questions, so let me take. It's a great question, short and down to the point. Some questions are coming through the chat. You can still put them on the chat, but some questions were also coming before to us when you were registering. So a question from the registering pool is, when should one disrupt an ecosystem? I think it's a cool question. So my thing is, what does it mean to disrupt, and what is when?
Do you want me to answer that one?
Yeah,
I think you have to disrupt something if you're no longer happy with the outcome of the system. So if you try to manage an economic system, an innovation platform, whatever, and you feel that what comes out is not what you expect it to be, then I think you're ready for disruption. Now, disruption very much for me is stop doing what you've always done. And in a way, sometimes it means do change the winning team. We always say never change the winning team. Maybe you have to change the winning team before the winning team runs down and can difficultly be redressed. So that is when you have to do it, whenever you feel it doesn't perform what you would like to do it. And then for me, disruption, of course, is really creating a new energy, is a new vibe, a new way of working, a new motivation, a new vision, you see? And then, of course, if you have the smartest people, I go back to what the Eindhoven region claims, if we have the smartest people, of course, then the thing will organize itself and allow an ecosystem to organize itself for the better.
Mm-hmm. Katja, an organization like you lead is an ecosystem, because we can think about an external ecosystem, right, intra-organizational, but within your organization, you know, and this is how we were looking, that you're a network. You're not a hierarchy where people report to you and so on. No, you're totally a network, and different people are nodes connected to many other networks if they decide to open up and give you as a leader of Eindhoven Engine this access. So if we speak about an organization as an ecosystem, as a network of networks, when is the right time to disrupt such an ecosystem?
Oh, that's a good question. So like we are, when we start with a job, are immediately looking for our successor. I think it should also be when you are doing something to look when you need to disrupt yourself. Sometimes we are saying we are willing to connect with all the parties and inspire for Disrupt Your Mother. And we are now forced by COVID to do the same within our own organization for a part. I think you should stay curious, you should stay adaptive, and also look if you are the best leader for this job and what is needed for the future. And on the other hand, you need a kind of path where, to believe in your goals and what you have to bring to the world. Mm-hmm. So I think start early with disruption and think about disrupt yourself and your own organization, but don't be too fast, perhaps, but also have a bit patience for that and to try new things. But on the other hand, when it's needed, also let it go. You have to transform yourself as a role model as well.
Mm-hmm. Super, thank you. We have one question that I personally find fascinating. It says, ecosystems are related to cultures and habits. How different cultures produce different ecosystems, and then what different disruptive strategies are necessary? So how would you comment on the Brainport culture, habit, and ecosystem? Because I find it that you're actually very, very homogeneous. I was surprised to learn that 80% of engineers working in your 80% or so, but it's a double digit in the Brainport companies come from Eindhoven University of Technology. So it's an extremely homogeneous pool of talent. It's really hard to be, disruptive if everyone is coming more or less from the same culture, even from the same school. So how would you, but you're well traveled and you're coming from all around the world, and then there are more and more foreign talent coming to Brainport and in your projects that you're investing in. How would you comment on this, that different ecosystems, that they have different cultures and then they need different disruptive strategies? I find it authentically fascinating. Let me just, before I give you the voice, I give you a minute to think about this. earlier this year, we had a webinar on, actually, I don't remember the topic, but there were people from all around the world, and I discovered that the word innovation is basically sounds the same in many languages, but in some languages it does not exist, or in other languages it's totally not connected to the root of word innovation. So the whole concept of doing something new that we assume is better than what was before, this is a kind of underlying assumption, is very much embedded in the technical engineering science-based cultures. How would you comment on these cultures of ecosystems and disruptive strategies?
Oh, I would love to think about this for days and months and years from now. I love this question as well. Yeah, me as a German in this ecosystem and traveling a lot, what you mentioned, and have worked in a lot of international ecosystems and networks and companies. I think also one of the things to be successful in disruption and innovation and open innovation is trust. And I think this is very important here, that people know each other, that they trust each other, that they ask for help, support, and not from their own perspective. So for the bigger common goal. And that's what I think it's one of the important success factors. Also, we share the same values. That's also very important, I think. On the other hand, the Eindhoven University has a lot of international students, so it's a very mixed population. So also when we hear that a lot of people stay in this ecosystem, I think this is a compliment that we not only have the educational institutes, but also the surrounding of companies and the networks that people stay here. We would like, of course, to educate our people also for ourselves and to attract talent from the outside world to work here. So I think the mix of the people and the culture in the companies is higher than we think when we hear TUE only.
Mm-hmm. Walter, maybe I can put a more specific question to you building on this. As we were saying, an organization, a large company, and you have many partners from industry who are your partners, your shareholders, I understand. They are also an ecosystem, and they also have a specific strong culture very often. People tend to work years long, decades in Philips or in other excellent, Dutch companies from Brainport region. So, how would you comment on those organizational ecosystems of the large industry, and then how you witnessed or studied or saw the disruptive strategies, how to disrupt this established corporate ecosystem?
Well, first of all, I think it's every ecosystem has its culture, indeed. And the culture of Eindhoven is a Philips culture. You can hardly meet somebody in the Eindhoven region who has not worked somewhere in their life for Philips. But it's, of course, at the same time, it is that trust issue. It is that family issue. I'm not Dutch either, so that excuses me. I always politely say, look, it's a family. It's a family culture. That is very strong. Right now, if you stay within that family culture, then you might run the risk that indeed you stay within the prevailing thinking of one or two or three of those major companies. So, but using the strengths of that network, using the family cohesion of that network, I think you should then start to challenge some of the elements of the culture that aren't necessarily productive or creative enough or impactful enough or whatever, and start within the system accepting the value of the ecosystem within the system to find for new ways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Can you give any examples? Have you seen Philips culture being disrupted? Have any of your projects?
No. But that's a very good one, since that's one of the main reasons in my mind why the Eindhoven engine exists, since Philips will never disrupt itself. And so let's be quite clear. And that is fine. I mean, I'm not here to criticize any of those companies. They do great jobs anywhere in the world. Now, you could do much more with such an ecosystem. And I think that's where the Eindhoven engine comes in. How do you do that? How can you use that fantastic potential on the university and the other knowledge institutes on the one hand, the Philipses of the world on the other hand, in order to really give rapid, more agile answers to real things that matter via using innovative technology. Now, it is not for nothing that the Eindhoven engine is a cooperation of different knowledge institutes, has corporate partners, and sits sort of just at the border of the campus of the university. Officially sits not on the university, but in all honesty, it is very close to the border.
Always on the borders.
It's always on the borders. But that, again, is not by accident. Since within Philips, I think, it's extremely difficult to disrupt Philips, but you have to question whether it's possible. You want to use the competencies you have for better and more creative, etc. But you might need to do that in between everything and everybody.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. I think we have time just for 2 more questions, but actually from Paul Tolczynski, Paul on the chat is recommending a new book in the US. I think everyone can go to the chat and check the book, but he also asks a very pragmatic question. He says, how do you design a network of networks, webs in the organizational system? Where did you start?
By like-minded people. What you try to gather is a number of like-minded people that share the same dream, that share the same vision, that are in it for the same thing. And they each come in with their networks. Needless to say, if you don't pick them all in Philips, I mean, if you pick them in the whole region, then they come in with their own network. But I think that's where you create. You bring people together. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, if you want to build a ship, bring people together and give them the desire for the endless sea. And I think it's the perfect strategy to create a network of networks.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all have, as we work, everybody has a part-time connection to the engine and to another network or another employer. And what Walter mentioned, to bring in your own network, you have your own history. So that's it's a sum of networks and experiences and of people. And I always say to anyone who is reaching out for me in a case he needs a network, work on your network day by day, and not only when you need it or when you're looking for a new job, but also take time to invest in the old networks you had. And in German, we say, man trifft sich immer zweimal. I think a lot of Polish people would understand that you have a lot of connections during your working and also private life. Yeah, and make use of that. It's so valuable and.
So this is exactly actually answering to Paul, where we started working with Katja, Walter, and her team and their team on where to start. And the starting point was the purpose. And we followed the framework of a purpose network fit. So the first step for us was to understand what is a purpose of every individual in your team. And I think it was a good exercise, especially at the moment where you were starting to work virtually, where people kind of got to look into another, not just as a colleague, spending some time of professional life, but also as a human being with dreams, with ambitions, with some, limitations, and then we discussed how does this fit into the Eindhoven Engine purpose. And I remember that you had it very clear what is the purpose of Eindhoven Engine, but then we were surprised to see how differently people interpreted this. And I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, from moderating this process and facilitating and kind of guiding, this was one of the very rewarding moments when I could see that people got closely connected, much closer. That they were much closer connected also to the engine and understanding what is this message they should be taken forward. And then we started to map the networks that you all belong to, understanding which are the key communities. And then this initial trust created allowed you to start of kind of building this network of networks. And I remember that we had this session on LinkedIn, and you know, always people going to these big platforms think, how should I extend my network? How should I go and have an even bigger, you know, those vanity metrics that, and I remember the mindset that we created. It's about not who is the right person for you, but who are you the right person for? And the first thing is to look at your team and actually help them, empower them, to engage them, to become much more influential in the team and in the ecosystem. We have just a few minutes left. We have a lot of questions unanswered. I think I may be taking the questions on LinkedIn, sharing them in our posting. Would you like to make some kind of final comment, Katja and Walter?
Yes, thank you, Daria. First of all, I would like to comment on one comment in the chat about high performance teams and innovations, and that you not only need like mind people, but of course a lot of diversity. I think that's something where we care a lot about, not to organize people who say, yes, yes, you are right, but who say, no, think about it, and who help us stretching our boundaries day by day. So we have a very diverse surrounding and a very diverse team, what we've also seen. But especially thanks, Daria, to you and Evelina for the trust and the good work and follow up and continuously challenging us. And that was really a pleasure to work with you. And if somebody needs a reference or I would love to give it and to be an example also for a very successful course we did with you both. Thank you.
Katja, this you are a dream client for every startup. I think you're in a good business. Lucky people who got into your ecosystem and your community. Thank you, Katja, very much. I appreciate this. Walter, can I ask you for? I mean, now you can say no. Katja is totally wrong.
No, look, she's. You never say of your boss that she's totally wrong to start with. No, I mean, that's point one. No, I think she's absolutely right, and I don't want to repeat that. I repeat that though I didn't get an ideal network IQ score, I did increase it, and at least I felt that it did help me personally. But I think more important that what it did for me or not is that it gave for us a kind of a joint purpose, a shared purpose, a shared direction, and an indication on how to get there. You're not going to do that, we have to do that, or it's not going to happen. But what we did get, of course, is that we had the right discussions, and it allowed us to see where to go, and then to kick off the process. And I think that for me has been very interesting and I think very, very joyful as a team. That it's another way of working together.
Walter, this was a very warm statement at the end. Listen, it's wonderful to see you here. It's been a pleasure to walk with you throughout this year. I see many wonderful friends here and colleagues and new people. I want to wish you all very happy Christmas, happy holidays, New Year. And listen, this next year is an opportunity for every single person to step back, take a big breath in and out and say, yes, now everything is possible. I want to thank you so very much. Thank you all. Thank you, Katja and Walter. Great thanks for accepting our invitation to be the guest for this webinar. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for being
Bye-bye.
with us. Happy Christmas.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Kim.